Okay. So questions about the quiz. You had doubts about it, please.
Sir, the question of the Gagandeep itself, sir, like if in the wafer itself, we have within the die, we are talking about two devices, that's the device variability. But like if we have two dies, like two within the wafer, what will that come in? Because lot is like wafer to wafer, right?
So it's tricky, Raghav, and the question that you've asked is really very good. Even that is called as device variability, but what is important to realize is that these variations, as you know move away from the center of the wafer towards the periphery or between two different dies far away, uh, those device variations could be of the same order as lot variations. So as our wafer size has increased and the number of devices has increased, the technology has advanced so much that you end up getting lot variations even on a single wafer. It can happen, but they're still called as device variations because they're on the same wafer.
Okay, so if you are sticking to stick same wafer, then we call it device.
Yeah, that's the nomenclature.
Okay. So, sir, the one thing is that quiz timing will be not Saturdays; it's in Mondays.
Mondays, yes, after my office hours.
Okay, sir.
You will have the weekend to prepare. Let's put it like that.
Okay, sir. Sure.
Yes, Faisal.
So if we try to make a wafer which is smaller in size, then the variations would be less, or like will it depend on the size of wafer?
Yeah, in smaller wafers, variations would be lesser because they will be more controlled.
Okay.
But they will be anyways costlier. So फायदा नहीं होगा. We go for big wafers so that things go cheap.
Okay. Okay, sir.
So small wafers would lead to costlier devices, not really preferred. It's counterintuitive in VLSI to go to smaller wafers.
Okay. Okay, sir.
Mhm. Okay. Yes, Tera.
Sir, what is the difference between a gate oxide and a field oxide?
You tell me.
Actually, I'm thinking that gate oxide will be a little bit thin and the field oxide will be thicker one.
Yeah, gate oxide is the oxide beneath the gate. So
Ye-
as we mentioned in one of the slides, it is something like 12 angstroms or 17 angstroms, very thin. Field oxide is the oxide that is grown or that is deposited to isolate different transistors, the source and drain regions of different transistors. So that is usually thicker, much thicker, and of the order of microns, if not more.
Okay. Sir, one more doubt, sir. Actually, if you are going to use the copper now, it is going to create some inter energy levels, some energy levels. It is going to create.
I'm sorry, can you please repeat?
If you're going to use copper now for
Copper.
contacts also, then it is going to create some in between some energy levels. It is going to create in the forbidden gap.
Yes.
But silicon also is a indirect semiconductor.
Yes.
It already has some inter energy levels will be there in the band gap itself. Then we can use copper also.
No, it simply kills the device.
Is it going to add some more energy levels? So there will be multiple transactions.
Yes, it kind of opens floodgates. पूरा एक band बना देता है वहाँ पे. It creates a full band in between the band gap. पूरा a full state like a metal. Metal is a sea of electrons, right?
Oh yes, got.
So it just floods everything. Can't work.
Okay, okay.
Okay, so that was primarily the first introduction to VLSI section that we covered till the last class. Today we will move into VLSI devices. Okay, so when I say VLSI devices, what do you understand by VLSI devices?
The transistors.
Okay. Just transistors?
Or maybe
MOSFET.
the capacitors and all those things for the mixed signal design.
Yes. Not just transistors. Actually, we will start with MOS capacitances here. Okay. So what is a MOS capacitance? What does MOS stand for?
Metal oxide.
Metal oxide semiconductor.
Metal oxide semiconductor. So what we are essentially saying is that,
Sir, 3 layers, like first layer is metal, second oxide, and third is semiconductor.
yeah, what we are saying is there is a metal, there is a semiconductor, and in between them there is an oxide. So metal is simply a conducting plate. Semiconductor is semiconducting, but semiconducting means it can conduct. So it means that there is a dielectric oxide between two conducting plates, and that clearly means it's a capacitance. So MOS, by the name itself, represents a capacitance. So metal, the metal gate, silicon dioxide, and then the body, and this becomes a MOS capacitor. When you put in the source and drain region, you call it a MOS transistor. But we will initially start our analysis of from the MOS capacitor. We will move to MOS transistor in the next step. Is that okay? So when I say that this is metal oxide and silicon there connected with each other, what happens at these connections, at this interface or at this interface? Any ideas?
So can you repeat the question?
I'm saying that when we bring metal oxide and semiconductor together, we brought them together, we brought them in contact with each other. So when they come in contact with each other, what happens at the interface?
So basically, 3 of these materials have different electron affinities. So when we bring them together, so basically there has to be some rearrangement of charges that has to happen there for this device or the material that we are overall creating to be stable or to have a uniform potential across if we are not applying any potential. So basically the band bending happens there, energy bands.
Okay. So all of you understand what is electron affinity? Gagandeep used the term electron affinity there. What is electron affinity? Not Gagandeep, someone else has to tell.
So actually, I'm not sure, but I think it's the energy required to take the electron to the valence, like to the outermost shell.
Yes, the energy required for an electron to escape from any material, that is called electron affinity. So I would not say valence band because, for example, metals also have electron affinity. So they don't have a valence band though. But electron affinity essentially means the energy it takes for an electron to escape from that particular material. So every material has some electron affinity. You remember this much? See, yes.
So won't we call that a work function? That
Yeah,
thing?
work function, and that is also referred to as electron affinity.
Okay, sir.
Samaksh?
Sir,
Yes, Divya.
sir, even from Fermi and energy level to the outer space.
Fermi? अभी
Fermi
Fermi पे
energy
नहीं आए
level.
हम. अभी हम नहीं आए Fermi पे. अभी हम work function और electron affinity पे. We'll come to Fermi energy. Don't worry.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, Neeraj?
Actually, in my BTech, I have studied affinity and work function as different terms. Like affinity is from like one is from Fermi level and one is to take electron from conduction band. like we have done as a work function is sum of affinity plus one more term, like in the BTech we have studied in this manner.
Okay. Let me check that and let me correct that for you. Like I will come back on this point a little later. But do you understand that there would be some energy that every electron, like that electrons in any material would require to move to the vacuum, to escape from the substance?
Yes, sir.
So the vacuum level or universe level, let us say, is constant. And energy required by different devices, by different materials would be different. So if it comes to plotting those materials, so if let us say this is a vacuum level, one material could be here, another could be here, another could be here. Can that happen?
Yes, sir.
And then when we bring these materials together, what needs to match?
So Fermi level.
So, okay, again, I'm slightly confused. We're talking about all this electron affinity, Fermi level, everything. I do understand that some of you have, like some of you did mention to me that in the last semester, you did not cover semiconductor devices or MOSFETs in much detail. So are these things coming like clear to you also because you studied them in your class 11th, 12th or in another course, or is it all going over your head? If you don't speak,
sir, I think we understand this much. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so like we understand this much. It's just that we didn't cover all the frequency responses and the other various types of capacitances in a CMOS, like I mean in a MOSFET. So like yeah, that's all.
So that part you guys have covered because that is what I intend to cover today.
Right. Okay.
So we didn't cover device physics.
Yeah. So see, I don't want to enter into too much of device physics also because there is a separate course, solid state devices, for that. This course is not that. But I do want you to understand that there are bands and there is band bending and there is a complete language to semiconductor devices. So
yes, this jargon is not entirely clear.
This jargon is not entirely.
It's not entirely clear.
It's not entirely clear. So most of the jargon you will get clarified when you do the SSD course, and but I want you to realize that there is some jargon around like that. Is that much clear?
Yes, sir.
So there will be when you go and do the SSD course, you will talk about band diagrams and band bending and all that stuff. So if you are interested in device physics, that is one course that you should definitely do. In this course, we are more into circuits, but to understand circuits and their operation, it is important to know that there is a physics behind it. I don't want to go into too much of physics here, but I want you to realize that there is a physical basis to whatever we are going to talk about from now on. Is that much clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Neeraj, you had a question?
No. Actually, sir, I have forgot to lower my hand. Sorry, sir.
Okay. So if you guys have already done this MOS capacitor frequency response and capacitances and MOSFETs earlier, so that makes my job easier. I can actually move a little faster. I will not go into too much of detail there then, because I just wanted to have you get a glimpse of it. And if you already have some glimpse, then I can be fast. So what we are saying is that when these three materials come together, they form a capacitor between them. But this capacitor is not like a capacitor between two metals. See, when you have two conducting layers, there are some different characteristics that this capacitor would have in comparison to a metal oxide or metal dielectric metal capacitor. And the reason for that is that there are these bands and that there are these energy levels that we're talking about. And when we bring these semiconductor in contact with the oxide, and we say that there is this Fermi level which needs to be matched across the entire material, then it requires some band bending to happen. We will just look at what band bending also means. So over here, what I have done is I've put a N plus polysilicon, a P silicon body, and SiO2. That is your silicon dioxide. And when I bring these three materials together, see N plus polysilicon means that there is so much doping that the Fermi level and the conduction band are kind of overlapping. That is the kind of doping we have there. Okay.
Sir, could you elaborate on what Fermi level is?
Okay, so Fermi level is a notional term. It is a term which states that around 50% of the probability of finding electrons in a particular material is plotted, and then it is said that there are 50% of electrons above the Fermi level and 50% of electrons below the Fermi level.
Okay. So
Okay.
Fermi level is such that okay, and the level itself describes the energy of the electrons, right?
Yes, it is about some energy of electrons, but for example, look at the silicon part of it, the silicon body part of it. Over here, the Fermi level is in the band gap. What does that mean?
Okay. Okay.
Means
So like
at Fermi level, actually there is no electron there.
Right.
Over here, look at it in the oxide region. Again, the Fermi level is in the band gap. What that means is even within the oxide, you're not expecting any electrons there.
Right.
Fermi level is just that probability. What is the probability? Okay.
So
When
in
you
effect,
apply
you're taking the average of all the energies of the electrons, right? Because then
Yeah.
50% will lie above and below.
Yeah. So Fermi was a scientist who gave this Fermi direct statistics. Okay. To describe the distribution of electrons in a semiconductor.
Okay.
Okay. And so that is classical physics. In advanced technologies or today we also use quantum devices and quantum physics into it. So some of these things may hold true, some of these things may not hold true. But Fermi level, you say, is a notional level at which the probability of finding an electron is 50%.
So what is the meaning of Fermi level lying inside a band gap?
It simply means when this line is closer to the valence band, it means that it is a p-type doped substance. So the probability of finding electrons in the valence band is higher. When it is closer to the conduction band, it means it's an n-type doped substance. The probability of finding an electron in the valence band is higher.
Okay.
And when it is in the center, that is along with the intrinsic level. So intrinsic level is in the center of the band gap.
Right.
It means that the material is not doped.
Not true. Okay. Okay. Right.
Okay. So Fermi level has no physical significance. It is only a notional thing created to improve our understanding and to do some analysis of the system. Physically, it represents no energy level. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what happens is that when I bring these three materials next to each other, then the Fermi level has to be aligned. Because in this region, we say that the probability of finding an electron above the Fermi level is 50% and below it is also 50%. Now, we also understand that silicon, say polysilicon over here, and SiO2 have a affinity difference of 3.1 electron volts. Okay. And over here also there is a gap of 3.1 electron volts because this side is also silicon. But because the Fermi level is stable, so at an infinite depth, we would get the same Fermi level as the doping, or the Fermi level at the same level as the doping. But close to this oxide boundary, what happens is there starts to be some collection of charge or removal of charge, so that I can get this 3.1 electron volt gap between oxide and the conduction band of the semiconductor. This is called as band bending. And this is what changes the behavior of a MOS capacitor from a regular capacitor that you would otherwise see in your labs. You may have already seen in your earlier labs. The capacitors, metal capacitors or stuff like that you would otherwise use. MOS capacitors would behave differently from them. Is this part clear? That at least this much, that MOS capacitors will not be like any other capacitor. They will behave differently. Is this part clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So,
Faisal, you had a question?
Sir, can you please explain that again? I was not able to understand. Like from this, when you have said 3.1 electron volts in the gate side and 3.1 in the silicon, and that is why it is bending. Like, can you please explain that whole part again?
Okay. So let us say the three materials are separately placed as of now. Let us say, okay. Yeah. Arey bhai. Let us say three materials are placed separately as of now, and when they are separate honge to kyunki ye silicon hai. When they are separate, we realize that conduction band of polysilicon, conduction band of silicon, and conduction band of the dielectric, they will have a gap of 3.1 electron volt between them. Is it clear till here?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now, because of the doping, Fermi level of this was here. Dielectric में कोई doping नहीं है, इसका Fermi level जहां भी था, and इसका Fermi level was at the EC. That is how you had doped, because you wanted it to be like a metal.
Yes, sir.
Metal means a sea of electrons, lots of electrons there. So you dope it very heavily. So heavily that it is almost like EC and EF are coinciding. You will always have electrons in the conduction, and that is when it becomes a metal. Otherwise, it will not be a metal, no?
Yes, sir.
So you dope it very heavily, so the Fermi level and this match. Now you bring these two materials together. What happens? As soon as these materials start to touch each other, a requirement sets in that Fermi levels have to be matched.
Okay.
So Fermi levels have to be matched. What does this mean? It means that this material, there will be some voltage generated internally so that Fermi level will match. All of this will go up.
Yes, sir.
All of this will go up so that the Fermi level matches, and your valence band is here and conduction band is up there.
So
But there is
matching
also this
Fermi level-
precondition. But there is also this precondition that spacing between these two will be 3.1 volts. So what happens if this went up by, let us say, X volts? A delta X, X ka kuch ek part will appear across the dielectric. Dielectric can always have a voltage drop across it. See, metals cannot have voltage drop across them. Do you understand this?
Yes,
If there
sir.
is any voltage drop across a metal, electrons will flow and kind of mitigate that voltage drop.
Yes, sir.
But dielectrics and semiconductors can have some voltage drop across them because they don't allow flow of electrons easily.
Yes, sir.
So the dielectric over here will bend. And this is a semiconductor. So semiconductor can also bend a bit. So the semiconductor also bends. Combined this bending plus this bending, we would get this movement of the Fermi level from wherever it was to the metal Fermi level.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So bending that happened here Yeah, the line is not coming.
Yeah.
So the bending that happened across the oxide and the bending that happened across the semiconductor side, addition of that will be equal to EC minus EF on the semiconductor side.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Okay, and it is because of this band bending that your device, that your capacitance behavior, we understand this is a capacitor, but this capacitor behavior will be different from a regular metal oxide metal capacitor.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Okay.
Now it is much more clear.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Great. Rajneesh, you have a question?
Yeah, sir. Sir, as you said that between the conduction bands of the poly and the SiO2, the energy gap must be 3.1 electron. Sir, and in this side between the substrate and the silicon oxide, uh, it is starting behaving like N type. That's why we have to maintain 3.1 electron over here also.
No. 3.1 electron volt is required because that is the barrier for any electron to move from silicon to silicon dioxide.
Okay, sir.
For any electron to move from silicon to silicon dioxide, you would need 3.1 electron volts. So you cannot change that.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. That's why. Oh, yes.
Now to ensure that band bending happens.
Okay, sir. Okay.
And there is no bending on the metal side because metal is a sea of electrons.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
I have to add some more thing. Like if someone asks why band bending is happening, so we have to say for matching the Fermi level, band bending is happening. Is that right?
So then you explain the way like I explained it to you. That
Oh.
Fermi levels, when things are in contact with each other, their Fermi levels have to match.
Okay. Okay.
But
sir.
there is this physical barrier also which exists. There is this electrical barrier which cannot be changed. So this 3.1 electron volt also has to be maintained.
Okay. So for because of these two
It is
things.
because of these two things that band bending happens.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay, not just one of them. Both of them are involved.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Rajneesh?
Sir, can I ask?
Yes, Raghav.
So, as I understand, the gate and the silicon body, they are different materials. So, but why we are maintaining the 3.1 electron volt for both of them, sir?
Because we use polysilicon for the gate, no? Polysilicon is polycrystalline silicon.
Okay, so
But
the
it is
material,
silicon.
so
Material
base
is
material
silicon.
is same. So that's why
Yeah.
it's 3.1 same. Okay.
Yes. So, okay. And it's a very good question, Raghav, because we need to understand that in advanced technologies, we are using metal gates. So what happens when I use a metal gate? The 3.1 electron volt is not necessary now. I can have a different pinning point. So till the time we were using polysilicon gates, there was a constraint on what the VT of different devices can be. Because you can only dope as much, and this is the only bending that you can bring about. Okay. Whereas once we start to use metal gates and high K dielectrics, what happens is that I have more flexibility by changing the material of the gate to change my VT of the PMOS and the NMOS independently. Okay, so this is something that you should remember. This would come in handy in some interview sometime. Gagandeep, you had a question?
Yes, sir. Sir, talking about this silicon body where the bending is actually happening, at the interface of the oxide and the silicon body, sir, there I can see that Fermi level has moved more towards the conduction band. So can I say that electron concentration has also changed? It is more towards the interface rather than the bulk.
Yes. Interface matlab?
Sir, ये silicon or oxide interface.
Okay. So what we say is that at the surface of the device, at the surface of or at the interface of silicon dioxide and P-type silicon body, there is a higher density of electrons than in the remaining part of the body. That is what you can say.
Yes.
Okay. So we have to be very exact in the way we speak things over here, because a slip of one word or another can completely change the meaning.
Sir, in case of end silicon body, this EVs of the silicon oxide and this substrate have to be difference must be constant, no, sir?
Yeah. If it is a so if we had an N-type silicon body, the band bending would be in a different direction then.
Okay.
Okay. Gagandeep, is your question answered?
Yes, sir. Sorry.
Okay.
So one thing,
Neeraj?
sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sir, actually, I was confused. Like I think polycrystalline should be the good material than gate as good gate material. Because like polysilicon and silicon will have very less work function difference. So it will keep the threshold voltage low. Actually, as per my knowledge, as much I know. Can you please explain that?
So we used polysilicon as a gate material because it was very easy and cheap to manufacture.
Okay,
Using metals makes the process much more complex. And polysilicon, N plus polysilicon and P plus polysilicon also helps you in controlling the VT, the band bending initially. So that also helps.
So, sir, can you please tell like other advantages of using metal? So, like, if
So let
someone
us
asks why we
say,
use metal.
Neeraj, SSD is the right course to discuss this in detail.
Okay, sir.
Because then we are talking about design of the devices. I want to talk about the fact that capacitance in a MOSFET will behave differently from the capacitance, a regular capacitance that you've known till now. We are digressing too much, but yeah, if you want, we can discuss it in the office hours. Not a problem.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Devjit?
Yes, sir. So along the width of the SiO2, we see that EC and EV is kind of rising linearly. So why is that happening? Can you explain
Because
that?
yeah, SiO2, what happens is there is no electron that can happen in between in SiO2. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
It's a dielectric. So
Yes,
what
sir.
happens? Since there is no charge, the entire voltage drop across or the voltage drop across this silicon dioxide thickness is distributed equitably across the entire dioxide. In
Okay.
silicon, there will be some charges that will still be there. Therefore, you have a bend, a kind of a curve there, because some potential drop happens there.
So can we say that the extent of the band bending would depend upon the thickness of the silicon dioxide as well? Because if we increase this, means from the diagram, if we increase the silicon dioxide width, it would rise more linearly, thus suggesting more voltage drop. And
No. So what happens is the slope of this will change. The distribution of band bending across silicon dioxide and the P-type silicon is actually a function of the dielectric constants of silicon and silicon dioxide, not a function of thickness. So the drop across silicon dioxide will be in the ratio of the dielectric constants of silicon dioxide and silicon.
Okay.
Okay.
So if
it is thicker, then the slope will be lesser.
Okay.
If it is thinner, the slope will be much steeper, and that can lead to tunneling. We will look at that later in the class.
Sir, and one more small question, sir. Sir, if we replace the dielectric materials by, let's say, that is having a say higher dielectric value, so then the band bending would decrease.
Yes. The type of band bending would also change. Yes, because it is a function of dielectric constant. Very good. This is a very good deduction. Very good.
And that's why you told last day that for reducing variability, we are using thicker dielectric and replacing them with.
No, the reason of using high K dielectrics was not to be able to do this. This is the additional benefit. See, it's a very costly affair to use high K dielectrics. For silicon dioxide, you simply grow the oxide. That's it. To deposit a high K dielectric, you actually have to do atomic layer deposition. It's a slow process. It takes time and it's complex. You have to talk about rare earth materials and rare earth metals, and 99.9% of rare earth metals are sourced from China. So it's a big risk. The whole electronics industry actually pivots around geopolitics of China. Okay. So we don't want to use high-K dielectrics just for the fun of it.
So
high-K dielectrics were introduced because if we would not use that, then the silicon dioxide would need to be drawn so thin, like you would just need, say, 5 angstroms of silicon dioxide, that huge currents would flow through the gate.
Yes, sir.
Gate leakage. Okay, tunneling across the gate. So many things would happen. So you could not afford that. So if you want to scale, you cannot go to that thin physical dielectric there. So you go to high-K dielectric so that the physical thickness is more.
Okay. So
it also reduces variability because the physical thickness, physical dimension has increased. So variability also reduces naturally.
Yes, sir. Understood. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So Neeraj, if you have no more question, you can lower your hand. It makes it easier for me. Raghav?
Yes, sir. So in the silicon body, when we are measuring this work function 3.1 electron volt, we are referring to the at the interface level, from the interface. Why is that actually? I'm not able to get.
Because it is from the interface only that an electron can jump, na?
So, but
to
jump
be able
where,
to jump across the barrier, to be able to jump from, say, silicon into silicon dioxide. See, silicon dioxide has this conduction band. This is the conduction band of silicon dioxide up there. This one. Ek minute ruko. What is happening? My PowerPoint seems to have got stuck. I'm not able to move into PowerPoint. So I may need to restart that, but yeah. The top point, the top line, which has a slant over there, this represents silicon, the conduction band of silicon dioxide. So if an electron has to move from silicon to the conduction band of silicon dioxide, it has to have that kind of 3.1 electron volts with it. That movement will happen only when the two substances are touching each other. It cannot happen from other places, na?
So, but that is the movement that we don't want, right? So that will not happen.
Not about whether you want it or not. The fact is that if the electron at the interface gets 3.1 electron volts, it will jump into the conduction band of the dielectric. That's a fact. Whether you want it or not doesn't matter.
Okay. So we are bending
so that 3.1 is a physical phenomena which has to be intact, even in our model. So band diagram is a model of this silicon oxide and metal, is it not? It is simply a model of what we are talking about. The model has to reflect what is physically the constraint. So physically, there is a constraint that to jump from silicon to silicon dioxide, you need 3.1 electron volts. That is why the model is made like this.
Okay. Sir.
Yeah. Rajneesh?
Sir, why we have a grounded VG here in this?
Oh, we just wanted to study something, we grounded it. So in reality, you will have many things coming on the gate. This is just one analysis we are doing. No other reason.
So on varying VG, this all things will change, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. That is how you will turn the transistor on and turn it off, na? By changing the gate voltage.
Means that's it. This
so we're not at the transistor yet. We're not at the transistor yet, but yes, this is just one terminal of the capacitance. So capacitance, one terminal need not necessarily be fixed. Both terminals can change. We just put it to ground.
So this band diagram will change.
Yes. Vaishnav?
Sir, you were actually talking about the relationship between this band diagram and VTH, right, sir? Could you, say that once?
There's nothing like threshold voltage for a MOS capacitor.
You were saying something about VTH previously, sir. I mean,
Yeah, I was talking about that for transistors, that if the band bending over here determines what is the threshold voltage that you would require. We'll come to that. In a little while, we'll come to that when we'll touch about the MOSFETs.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Or even earlier than that, actually. So those whose questions are answered, please lower your hands. Meher?
Yeah, so you said that because of this band bending, the MOSFET doesn't behave like regular capacitors, right? So how so? How are we saying that exactly?
So see, for a regular metal oxide metal capacitor, the oxide thickness or the dielectric thickness remains constant, is it not?
Yeah. Yeah.
Over here, what is happening? Over here, you realize that if I want to change the charges, so whatever voltages you apply on the two sides, charges will change across a fixed thickness of the capacitor.
Yeah.
But in a MOSFET, MOS capacitor, you see that there is some band bending happening.
Okay.
If you add more charges somewhere, the bending would change.
Right.
So you wanted some charges, some charge distribution to appear, but due to band bending, that charge distribution is different from that.
So what does the level of the conduction band of your silicon dioxide have to do anything with the capacitance?
Because it defines where the electrons would come and settle. Nahin?
Right. Right.
So that is where, see, capacitance is about two plates and putting charges on those two plates.
Yes.
So on the silicon side, how will the charges be placed and where they will be placed? That will depend on the bands over there, na?
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Because bands define where the charges can come and where they simply cannot come.
Right.
And therefore, band bending would mean that, and variable band bending would mean that the capacitance would vary.
Okay, sir. Got it. Got it. Right.
Priyanka?
So, like in this, at interface, we have to maintain 3.1 electron mole, like electron affinity. So, why not in body, like when we go from far from the interface, why this bending doesn't happen there? Like there also we have to maintain a 3.1 electron mole affinity.
No. An electron from one micron depth inside the semiconductor cannot simply jump into the dioxide, na?
Yeah, correct.
To be able to move into the dioxide, the electron has to first come close to the surface. Only then it will jump. So this 3.1 is required only at the surface. Now look at the metal side. On the metal side, 3.1 electron volt is constant. That is throughout the metal side, this is 3.1 electron volts. Why so? Because in metal, you cannot have any bending. So it is all constant. But in a semiconductor, since you can have bending, the capacitance also varies, and 3.1 electron volt or the Fermi level, or basically at some depth, the original nature of the semiconductor would appear and not the band bended one. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay. So I will need to stop the recording over here for a minute because my okay. So we just earlier talked about the fact. Meher, you have a question? Your hand is raised.
Oh no, sorry, sir. I forgot to do it.
Yeah. So we were just talking about the fact that due to band bending in the semiconductor region, the MOSFET capacitor would behave different. The MOS capacitor would behave differently than a metal capacitor, metal oxide metal capacitor. So to be able to characterize this, what we do is we apply a voltage between substrate and the gate, and we say that we will vary this voltage V, and we want to observe the the change in charge and the change in capacitance or the flow of current that is happening to measure the capacitance there. Okay, and you see What happens over time? When I apply negative voltage on the gate, what would happen? When I apply a negative voltage on the gate, though this is a p-type substrate, more holes would accumulate at the surface of silicon. Are you able to see this?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Huh?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So this part is called accumulation. Now, when I say that I reduce that negative voltage, I bring the voltage closer to 0. Then what happens? Then we looked at this band bending diagram when this voltage at both the nodes was 0. So I would have this kind of a band bending happening there. So if you look at it carefully, what we are talking about it is that at the surface of the silicon over here, my EF is kind of coinciding with the Fermi level. So what I would say is that there is some, so when it is at the Fermi level, what does that mean? That the silicon behavior in this region would be something like intrinsic silicon. Are you able to see this?
Sir, I didn't understand. Can you?
So if EF is equal to EI, we call it as intrinsic silicon, that nothing is doped. There is no doping. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Over here, if you look at it carefully, see, EI would be something like this over here in the center of EF and EC. EF and EC, EV and EC.
So EI is the band cap of silicon, right? I mean,
no, EI is the intrinsic energy level, which is in the center of EV and EC.
Intrinsic energy. Okay.
EI, the red one that I'm showing, that's called EI.
Okay.
Okay. So over here, we see that EI and EF are almost coinciding due to band bending.
Right.
So I have intrinsic silicon. So I would say things are almost depleted there. Okay. And what happens is that in this region, no, if I change the voltage by a small value, a few millivolts here and there, there will be no charge change over here at the surface. The charge would change at the boundary of this depletion layer. There will be slightly extra bending or slightly lesser bending. Okay, because at the surface, it is almost intrinsic now. Any change, any more charge or any less charge, the change would happen at the boundary of the depletion layer. Okay.
Sir, so just to like clarify, so can you go back to the previous slide? This one. No, okay. I meant that yeah, this one. So here, near the surface of, I mean, near the boundary of your silicon and your silicon dioxide, your intrinsic energy level is coinciding with the Fermi level. So there it behaves like intrinsic silicon. So there's not much accumulation over there. But when you go away from the boundary, it approaches the conduction.
Yeah, you start to get more charges.
So that there it behaves more like an N-type. That's
P-type. Over
So
here,
if
it's P-type.
Yeah, but sir, if it's if your intrinsic level is closer to the conduction band, then
Intrinsic level is always in the center.
okay.
So when the bands bend, intrinsic level also is shown to be bending. It is also a notional level.
Right. So yeah, so there if it's like regular P-type, then why do we see a depletion region over there?
Depletion means there are no like if you need charges, more charges, there are not many charges available here because it's almost intrinsic.
Okay. So like relatively it's relative, I mean compared to the other one, it's like N-type, even though it's just intrinsic silicon.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Okay. So what happens? Because there are no charges in this region, any charges you need, you will get them from the remaining depth of the silicon. Okay. So any change in charge density would happen at the boundary of my bending. So my effective dielectric thickness, see, when we say that my dielectric, there are these two, metal 1, metal 2, and there is this dielectric in between, we say that the capacitance is equal to epsilon by A, let us say. Okay, epsilon into epsilon A by Tox. As Tox reduces, your capacitance increases. Okay? So what are we saying over here? We are saying that my Tox, we are saying that this is my capacitor because I change a small voltage over here. There is a small change in capacitance right after Tox. But in silicon, we are saying that that change in charge happens at Tox plus WD. So what happens? The denominator becomes Tox plus WD. What does that mean? That my capacitance would reduce.
Right. Okay, sir.
Okay. Now,
because then it's effectively a capacitor with in series with another. So
yes.
Right.
Then if I do apply still more voltage over there, then there will be still more band bending. Still more band bending would mean, let us say this, and this would mean that I had a p-type, but in this region, I have an n-type material now, because my Fermi level is very close to the conduction band because of so high band bending. Okay. So this is called as inversion layer. And now if I want to change any charge, there is so many charged particles available over here. All that movement of charge can happen from the inversion layer itself. So again, my oxide thickness comes out to be Tox. Okay. So when you increase the voltage over here like this, you see that initially the capacitance is high. Why is it high? It is high because the change in charge is happening across the oxide only. This is the accumulation region. After some time, we see that, oh, this capacitance starts to decrease. Why does it start to decrease? Because this depletion layer starts to get formed. And this depletion layer means there are no available charges there, so that any change in charge would happen at the boundary of the depletion layer. But all of a sudden, what happens? An inversion layer is formed. And additional change of charge happens at the surface of, or at the interface of silicon and silicon dioxide again. So this is the low frequency transfer characteristic, or characteristic of the MOS capacitor. Now, why did I say low frequency?
Sir, maybe because at low frequency only that interface would be changing. At higher frequencies,
so
that will remain there only.
At low frequency, what happens is, my, let us say this is the band bending thing happening there. So at low frequencies, what happens is, I have sufficient time to move electrons from here to substrate. Sufficient time to do that. And therefore, any change in electron density would happen at this interface. At very high frequency, what happens is, if I'm moving very fast, so what happens is, electron starts to go out, but it has not even crossed the depletion region when the polarity has changed. So the electrons of this region remain here only. So where does any change in electrons happen? It happens at the depletion width boundary again. And therefore, at very high frequencies, the MOS capacitance will behave as a very less capacitance.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, could you explain this inversion layer again, sir?
Inversion layer. What do you understand by inversion layer till now?
Sir, I'm like, what I understood is that there is another layer which is being formed in between like depletion and this layer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, see, we had a p-type silicon. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Now, due to band bending, the surface of the silicon has more density of electrons now, due to
Yes,
band
sir.
bending.
Yes, sir.
So that at the surface, it has now become n-type.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
That is why it is called inversion, because the polarity of the material, we had physically a p-type material, but at the surface, we now have an n-type material.
Okay.
That is why it is called inversion layer.
Sir, I mean, even in depletion region also, we do have these electrons, right, sir? For suppose.
No, you do not have that kind of a density of electrons as you would have in an n-type material. Depletion region actually is kind of depleted of any moving carriers. That is
Okay,
why it
so
is called depletion region.
Okay, I mean, like due to this high voltage or something, we are getting free electrons in that region.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Because so much band bending has happened, electrons can very easily come there. Okay, Rajneesh, you have a question?
Sir, can you tell the difference between EI and EF again, sir? Sorry.
So EI is always designed or always shown as the center of band gap.
Sir, it is a constant value.
EI is a notional number or a notional energy level where no electron can sit there, but it is shown as the center of the band gap. It is an energy level which is equidistant from the valence band and the conduction band, both.
Okay, sir.
EF, on the other hand, is derived from Fermi direct statistics, which says that probability of electrons above this is 50% and below this is also 50%. EF is also a notional energy level. EF पे भी कोई electrons हो जरूरी नहीं है. It is also a notional energy level. However, EF will be different. EF will be closer to the conduction band in n-type material and valence band in p-type material. EI will always be equidistant from both.
Now understood.
Okay.
Sir.
Yes, Vaishnav.
Sir, yeah, sir. Actually, when this inversion layer forms, sir, are the depletion electrons even present, sir? I mean, like below them.
Depletion has no moving carriers.
Yes, sir. I was asking only about the layer, sir, not the electrons or the carriers. Is that present over there?
Depletion layer is always there. There are silicon atoms there, right?
Yes, sir. I mean, like
but
so
there
is
a flood of electrons also there. Therefore, we call it inversion layer.
So where are these electrons actually moving from, sir? I mean, like our voltage is being given between the gate and the body, to be precise, right, sir? So where are these electrons exactly moving, sir? So if the depletion region is in between gate and body, and over there, if the over that, if the inversion laying is being formed, then I don't see any charge transfer or something, or the current transfer between the gate and the body.
The gate and the body do not have any charge transfer. A capacitor does not allow charge to move from from one terminal to the other. It cannot happen, can it? There is a silicon dioxide barrier in between. Nothing would ever move from gate to the body.
Okay.
That is why we have silicon dioxide, is it not? That is
Yes,
the meaning
sir.
of a capacitor. But the two plates are not physically connected, but they are influencing each other's behavior. What is happening? I change something on the gate, the behavior on the silicon side changes. That is what a capacitance is.
Okay, sir, we are only talking about the capacitance value. That's it. Not about any current flow or something. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
So this high frequency model, sir, I couldn't get it, sir. This.
Yeah. So the high frequency model, Raghav, is about the fact that, see, it takes some picoseconds, even if it is picoseconds, for an electron to move out from the inversion layer to the substrate, to the body. Now, if I'm operating at a small signal level, which is say 20 gigahertz, how much time do I have? Just a few picoseconds. The electron may not be able to physically move out from the inversion layer to the body, but some voltage change is happening. So some charge change is happening somewhere. It cannot happen, if it is not happening in the inversion layer, it can only happen at the boundary of the depletion layer.
So like when I've crossed the VT voltage, I have my inversion layer formed. So now I can see a effective capacitance thickness of Tox. Now, if I increase beyond VT, now, but still I will have that inversion layer, right?
Yeah.
So, sir, I mean, I can understand that why that like I should go up like that, because even if I'm fasting, changing very fast, even the very frequency is very fast, but still that inversion layer exists. So that Tox is constant. So what additional charge you're talking about?
So what is a capacitance? We discussed that a little while back. A capacitance is about, or the thickness of oxide or whatever we talk about is about, there is one plate, there is another plate. I change something here, something changes on this plate. That is the effective spacing between the two plates, is it not? Now there is this inversion layer here, fine, but nothing is changing there because there is no time for it to change. Only change is happening here only, at the edge of the depletion boundary. So this is my effective capacitance.
Okay, so inversion layer capacitance will be there, but additional to that at the depletion end also.
No, at very high frequency, inversion layer does not have any influence on capacitance because it cannot change any charges. The charges in the inversion layer cannot change.
Yes, sir.
In response to the change in gate voltage.
Okay, and so, but still, why it is getting constant then after that at the high frequency model? Shouldn't there be some kind of
depletion width cannot grow beyond a particular maximum level. Any further voltage you apply, there will be more charges in the inversion layer. Depletion width cannot go beyond that.
Okay, so after in the high frequency model, the changes in charge, the delta Q is happening at the very
at the WD max, depletion width max.
Okay. So it becomes, so this inversion becomes a constant basically.
Yes.
Okay.
Sir.
Meher? Meher?
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, I had a question regarding depletion layer only. So like when we are going from your depletion region to your inversion region, so like it's accumulation of like effectively free electrons is just happening on the boundary, right? But as it happens, so somewhere between the inversion layer to your body, there has to be a depletion layer, right?
The depletion layer would always be there, but at low frequency, the charges in the inversion layer can change.
Okay.
Therefore, the effective capacitance that you see increases because the Tox changes, or the effective distance between the two plates where charges are changing reduces.
Right. Okay.
Sir.
Yes.
Sir, my doubt was the same. I'm like this is an addition to the previous question asked by Meher. So, sir, can I think that this inversion layer which is formed, can I think that as a metal layer, and the capacitance which we are mentioning in this at the inversion point is the capacitance between the gate and the inversion layer?
Yes.
Yes, right, sir. So, and one more thing, sir. So what about the, I'm like, this question was asked by Meher even. So what about the capacitance between the inversion layer and the body?
They are connected. Any charge can flow from inversion layer to the body. So how can there be a capacitance between them?
But there would be a depletion region in between them, right, sir? I mean,
depletion region doesn't mean charges cannot flow from there. Depletion region only means there are no charges available there.
oh, so even there's no capacitance between them.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Teja?
Sir, in that case, we can call it as a depletion capacitance is also there.
I'm sorry?
Depletion. We can call it as a depletion capacitance.
Which?
We have metal oxide and there is a channel, and below that there is a depletion. No, sir. We can call this. Wait, one second. We can call this as a depletion, and the channel and the substrate as a depletion capacitance.
Yeah. So you see, we are calling it depletion capacitance over here. You're absolutely right.
Okay, sir. After forming the channel, also we can say that the gate and gate oxide and channel as one capacitance, and the channel depletion region and the substrate as another capacitance. So they are in the series, no, sir?
Yeah. But the change in charge is happening over here. At low frequency, change in charge happens over here. At high frequency, change in charge happens over here. So at low frequency, the capacitance is large. At high frequency, capacitance goes down.
Sir, even in the low frequency also, the depletion region will be there only.
It will be there.
Then
but no. Wait.
Capacitance.
Let there be a capacitance. What would you observe at the gate? You change something. At what place will you see the change in charge? That defines the thickness that you need to consider when you measure capacitance.
Okay, sir. Got it.
Okay. Physically, those exist. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
But that doesn't come into the electrical plane, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't change anything for you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think we can cover only till here today, but anything else?
Sir, question on this slide only. Sir,
Yes.
you have written on the upper part that MOS transistor CV at any frequency. So basically, it won't have this high frequency effect if I have a transistor. Right?
Yes. So that is evident in the previous slide. So if there is a source or drain region over here, the electrons will simply change from here to here. They don't have to travel the width of the depletion layer. Okay.
Sir, one more question.
Yes.
Sir, about the depletion, I mean, if I want to understand that, then can we say that okay, when the depletion is happening, so at the time when the band bending happens, so basically the holes move away from the interface that we were saying, surface of that, and then the ions are only there, so they cannot conduct, right? So
yeah,
okay,
that is what depletion layer is.
Okay.
In the graph slide, what is quasi-static CV? Quasi-static CV.
Quasi-static CV means that this is dynamic in nature, in the sense that it appears as a constant CV, like a constant CV curve. But what happens is that there is a constant change or flow of electrons between source drain and this inversion layer or stuff like that. So it's quasi-static. It's not, as soon as you will change the charge, as soon as you will remove the voltages, there is no capacitance there again. See, metal oxide metal, this capacitance is always there, whether there is a charge available, whether you apply a voltage there or not.
Yes, sir.
But in a MOSFET, the capacitance and its value is quasi-static. It depends on the region of operation.
Yeah. Okay. The
That is what quasi-static
inversion, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it is not a static CV. It is quasi-static. It changes with the region of operation.
CV.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sir,
Yes.
So the question Gagandeep asked at NEF, so can you please elaborate? I couldn't get it when he asked that at NEF, at any frequency in the top
Well,
part
so
on.
for MOSFET, the charges can come from the source and drain region. The distance between source drain region and that of the body is very different. So in MOSFET, even at high frequencies, you will see a high capacitance after inversion layer is formed, because inversion layer still continues to change in terms of amount of charge.
Okay.
However, in a MOS capacitor, that doesn't happen.
Okay, so that NEF was for MOSFET basically.
MOSFET.
Okay.
Okay. Teja, you have a question? Your hand is raised.
No, sir.
Okay. So if there are no more questions, we will close it here. Yes.
So depletion region starts from the flat band voltage and go up to the threshold voltage, according to this figure.
Yes.
So in the flat band voltage, there is no band bending occurs after that.
In the flat band voltage, there is no band bending because everything is flat.
Yeah.
Then
So
the band bending starts.
So after that, band bending start again in the reverse direction of accumulation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sir, hello. Sir, just to confirm that when we are talking about the frequency, we are ensuring that the basic offset of VT is there, and about that only the frequency of the signal
Yeah,
above that is varied.
Yeah, we're talking about small signal models over here.
Okay, sir.
Devjit?
Sir, just one question, sir. How the band bending determines my VT of the device would be?
Okay, so let us say the intrinsic band bending is 500 millivolts.
Okay. Yes, sir.
So if 500 millivolts, so at 0 volts, if I say I have already reached, let us look at it like this. At 0 volts, there is some band bending that is already happening. To create the inversion layer, I need to apply some more voltage and I will get it. Now, if my curve was such that flat band happened till here and then band bending happened like this, then the VT would come here, somewhere here.
Okay.
So the more the band bending that already happens because of my gate dielectric interface, whatever, okay? The more band bending that already happens, the lesser the VT would be.
Sir,
Because I need lesser bending for bringing in the inversion layer.
Okay. Sir, from this, what you have told, can we say that if there is more band bending, then we'll be at resting stage, we'll be further away from the VT. So for those type of devices, VT would be less.
No.
Sorry,
Yeah.
the leakage would be less.
No. If band bending is more already, it means inversion layer is easy to form. So VT is going to be less.
Yes, sir.
So VT is going to be less, subthreshold leakage will be higher.
More. Okay. Yes, sir. Understood.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. So thank you guys. We will start with MOS transistors next class, and then we will move to other devices. Okay.
Sir,
thank you.
Sir, one doubt.
Yes.
Sir, in Devjit's question, sir, you told that VT is less. Then how we told that it is in the subthreshold?
I'm sorry.
Sir, sir, you told me that in more the back bending, the VT gets lesser. Sir, how we determine that it is in the subthreshold, sir?
Oh, that's because at lower VT, when you have less VT, then the subthreshold currents are higher. That's the only thing. Oh, don't worry about it. We will talk about the current. If you've studied current equations of MOSFETs earlier, you will see that.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you guys. All the best. See you on Friday then.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.